Hello and welcome everyone to Sports Today. And we have a full house. We have a full house with the man of the moment, Venki Mysore, the CEO and head of Kolkata Knight Riders. They've made quite a splash since last night when we put out the tweet that Kolkata Knight Riders is up to something very interesting, an American foray, investment in American cricket and another league. And I've obviously got two of my very dear friends and two of Sports Today experts, Deep Das Gupta and Pragyan Ojha, to try and make sense of what Venki tells us. So that's the whole idea. Venki, over to you first as to what exactly are you doing? What is this? Why did this happen? How long was it in the offing? Give us a sense and your vision forward before Deep and Pragyan can also come in.
Well, thank you, Boria, first of all. And it's great to be back here and talk to the, as you put it, the elite panel. And, see, the thing is, I'll just take you back to, I recently, during IPL, celebrated my 10th anniversary with KKR on October 11th, actually. And that was my 10th season. So they say that time flies when you have fun. So I can't believe that 10 years has flown by. And but when I came on board, with my, as you know, with my background in financial services and having worked in the US for a long time, and I worked there for 13 years, and then I was in different parts of the world, setting up businesses for MetLife, etc., which was my previous company and my previous career. When I came on board here, the thing that I was asking myself is, IPL is a 2-month project, high intensity, high visibility, whatnot. And people used to say at that time that the window could expand. But I realized very quickly that, with bilateral type of calendars, FTPs, as well as the ambitions of other countries to set up their own domestic leagues, there was no chance of the window expanding. So the question was, how do you build your business? And I always felt that the two pillars on which you build your business is your brand and your fan base. And if you want to scale the business, how do you grow it? And for me, it was about saying, if you can globalize your brand and if you can acquire assets around the world under a mother brand of Knight Riders and using a business model that you build here and you test and you make it work so that you can take it to different markets and replicate it. If you're confident of that, then what happens is that is how you achieve scale. That's how you can widen your brand and the salience of your brand grows and your business grows. This was the kind of vision, not knowing what is possible, what's not possible. But fortunately, over the years, because of our stated vision, we have been always keeping an eye out. And as we have built a strong base here in India, in IPL as Kolkata Knight Riders, anytime there was a league that opened up or not just in cricket, but any kind of sports category, somehow or the other, the first proposal landed on my desk and we were evaluating that. And that's what led to us going to the Caribbean Premier League as Trinbago Knight Riders. That's what led to us going into South Africa when they were launching it and setting up Cape Town Knight Riders. It's another matter that it didn't happen. But this was always the track on which we were running. And for obvious reasons, since my familiarity with the US, having lived, worked there and having still very strong relationships and roots as well, I was always keeping a close eye on it. And even when we went into CPL, one of the added benefits was that a couple of games during the season was going to be played in Fort Lauderdale. So we said that's a way up to get your foot in the door and just test the waters. And so when US has had several conversations over the last several years because it has changed hands. The board has changed hands and whatnot. But I think now they've reached a stage where there's a lot of professionalism, there's good structure, and more importantly, highly credible people who have come in to run the board. Their board is called USA Cricket, and they had reached out, and then ACE, which is the company that owns the rights now. ACE is American Cricket Enterprises, and actually the Times Group has a substantial shareholding there, and they had gone in, and Willow TV. So all the pieces kind of came together, and the people are also known. So when the conversation started, we said, listen, we are always fundamentally interested. And if it is about setting up a franchise and building it, that's easy. Easy in the sense we know how to do it. We've done it before. So we're happy to do it. But I think their thought process was a lot different. So that's what has kind of led to where we are right now. And so the scope of what we are going to do with them is substantially broader, Boria.
Deep, is this now the way forward? I mean, this is a question basically for both you and Pragyan. I mean, America has been, bordering that, okay, the cusp. American cricket has to take off. Cricket has to take off in the United States for the game to really become global, to become a major financial player in the world schema of sport. Is this finally the foothold in the door that it's actually opening up that market?
Oh well, for me, yes, definitely yes. As Venki just mentioned, I mean, we've been hearing about cricket in US for the last 4 or 5 years, but obviously for reasons off the field reasons, it hasn't been possible. I mean, I've been wanting. I mean, I've been getting offers to go there every 4th of July for last 3 years to go and play a tournament there, but it hasn't worked out because of like I mentioned, off field reasons. But the most important part is when I was going through that press release, it's the best part is that they don't own a team. They are part owners or stakeholder of the whole league, which means they're indirectly or rather directly stakeholders of the growth of the sport in the US. And that is important. So it's not outsourced. The growth is not outsourced to someone else. So they're not dependent on someone else whether the sport will grow or not. It is in the hands of the franchises. It's in the and they are the stakeholders. And this I believe is a great idea because they do need US cricket does need hand holding the expertise that franchisees like KKR with not just 10 years in just IPL, as rather 13 years in IPL. We talk about the MSANC League or the other South African league that was supposed to happen, the CPL, all that experience would be required to make sure that cricket grows in the US. And obviously, we know US is the biggest market. So there's no two ways that if the sport has to grow, it has to find markets apart from the Commonwealth countries which already play the sport. That's one. Secondly, the other important part is the sport itself. Forget US for the time being. The sport itself needs a lot of professionalism in it. It's not an amateurish sport anymore. It's a professional sport. And that's where I think franchisees like KKR are doing such a wonderful job. IPL, I think it's done a wonderful job of changing the whole mindset of the sport and people involved in the sport. It's not an amateurish game anymore. I mean, if your thought process is amateurish, then this is not the sport for you. So I think from a holistic point of view, I think it's a great move for cricket as a sport itself.
Again, this is the way forward now.
Yes, yes, I'd like to congratulate Venki Garu and everybody who's trying to globalize the game, especially as Deepda said, um, like we have this Commonwealth countries which are they know the cricketing culture, but now we are slowly taking cricket into a lot of other countries which is very new to them. But my only thing would be like when you went to CPL, when you're talking about South Africa, there was cricketing culture, so they knew what to do. But when you talk about US, I've been there, I've spent time with young boys. What I felt was you need Indians there. So how do you address that challenge? When Indian players go there, that is something which I would like to see as a player, because at times we see every other players, they go out, they play a lot of other leagues, but to make cricket popular in US, I think the Indians are very important. Venki Garu, what I'm talking about, because when you go to US, there are a lot of Indians and people from subcontinent who are more passionate to to have that culture grow there. I think Indians and people from subcontinent will have a lot bigger role. So how do you see this challenge? Because I'll be very excited to see some Indian names there playing this league.
Venki,
No,
so just to add to that, I mean, is it possible for expats to sustain a sport, or do you have to get locals to sustain a sport? One, and secondly, is it economically viable? I mean, for example, CPL, despite all the hoo-ha, is it still economically viable, or do you still sustain losses? As a business, how are you looking at it from the standpoint of being a business professional?
no, I think it's a great point, Pragyan, the points that you made, and Boria, what you have said as well. And see, to be honest, when you step back, and sometimes we talk about it like Deep was saying, we talk about it like, okay, it's cricket, it's a sport, and it's a league and tournament happening and all that. But I just want to give you a different perspective on what has happened to cricket as a business. I mean, as a sport, we see what happens. And behind the scenes, when you put that product out there and Deep is commentating and Pragyan's commentating and you see the game, you enjoy it at a certain level. But, the behind the scenes work that goes on, I mean, think about it this way. IPL is today being valued at a $6 billion valuation. And think of if you were running a company which was a $6 billion company, how you would run it. And what is the kind of governance structure that you would put? What type of people you would have? What the whole management structure that you would create? So it's not a joke anymore. And when you look at franchises like ours, we have never gone out there to try and understand what is the value of our franchise. But you hear people, and since I come from a financial services background, I know a lot of investment people who talk. And when they talk about millions of dollars, they jokingly or anecdotally sometimes say that the number would start with a 3. So which means that you're talking about $300 million somewhere, 2,000 crore type of a company. So if you're talking about a 2,000 crore type of a company, how would you run it? When you think of it. So this is the sports, and cricket is a product out there, but there's a huge business ecosystem that surrounds it. So you have to take that seriously and run it. Now, in that context, when you look at the United States, yes, I mean, how do we build a business around that? I mean, one is 3 streams of revenue, just to simplify it, that you look at any businesses. One is your media value. Second is your sponsorship value. And then third is your fan base and the interest in terms of ticket revenue, and related to that, food and beverage at stadiums and merchandise and licensing and all of those types of things. But when you look at the environment and the sports market in the US, it's the number 1 media market in the whole world. And cricket is the second most consumed sport worldwide. So when you put those two together, you say, listen, I mean, I've got the ingredients to make it work. So it's a management challenge for us to be able to go in and say, to your question, and to Pragyan's question as well, will the so-called diaspora support it sufficiently? Answer is yes. Because, I mean, you've got a very affluent diaspora somewhere estimated to be 7 to 10 million in the United States. I mean, this is a very affluent group. So they are, in fact, if you've studied the digital content consumption of IPL, next to India, the number 2 consumers of digital content of IPL is the United States. So from a distance, they are consuming IPL content. And if it is happening in their backyard, in their neighborhood, can we get them excited enough to come to the stadium and watch it? So that's one challenge. But I think the way we have thought about it also is that, if the league is going to be built only on the basis of the diaspora, I don't think it can grow and sustain in the long run. So therefore, my thought process always was that we need to find ways to get the American sports lover to start taking to cricket. And for that to happen, you need the American sports investor, if you will, people who are involved in American sports, to get involved with this. And that is what is exciting about this venture, because I've been sowing the seeds for this over the last several years. Now, I get invited to a conference once a year, which is hosted by owners of sports franchises in the US, American football, baseball, basketball, ice hockey. These owners, they hold a conference once a year in Arizona. And so I get invited to that. It's a ski resort. You go there, you sit in a conference room, you're looking around, the who's who of American sport are sitting there. And they are so intrigued by cricket. Every year, without fail, I'm on some panel there. They call me Mr. Cricket there, when I go in there. Oh, the cricket guy has come, So I've been working on this for not just, it's not an announcement that we've just made over the years. So what I find is, and I've always told them, I said, listen, you want to know more about cricket, please come as my guest to Calcutta. Please come to Eden Gardens and be my guest. I'll show you what T20 cricket is all about. And surprisingly, Boria, they have taken me up on that over the last few years. So I've had guests who have come from the US. For example, the guys who own the Dallas Mavericks, the basketball team, have come in. There's another group from Dallas, which is the Rossborough group. They've come in. Now they are investors in this. When they came to some of our games in Eden Gardens, 70,000 people filled up there, game happening under floodlights, white ball, cheerleaders and and fireworks going on and a packed stadium, they're like, what have you done here? What is this? I mean, they didn't have much of an idea, but 3 hours, it's like an American football game. Duration is exactly like that. Lot of comparisons to that, and the value of, so people understand this. So the reaction from them tells me that if we package it right and we position it, it will catch the imagination of the public there. There's no doubt in my mind.
See, this is very similar to baseball also. I mean, having taught in the US for several years, if you go and see the the Chicago Cubs, it's the same deal. Or even in Canada, if you go to the Rogers Stadium and watch one of those games, it's the same deal. So, and I have always felt that American exceptionalism as far as sport is concerned, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's baseball, whether it's to a degree their own sport. If we are able to take cricket there, because cricket is popular, whether it's the Midwest Cricket Conference, the number of teams there, people play cricket regularly in Washington Park, right? Every weekend. I started cricket at the University of Chicago in the quads with my students and American students, local students. So that market is waiting to be tapped. But the only thing that I've been toying is, we've been talking about this for a good decade and more. Is it finally time for someone to be able to break through? That's the real challenge, because 2003 World Cup, if you go back and check, the consumption was, I remember I was sort of my second year teaching at the UFC. It was $299, that package at International House, which I paid for and got the satellite rights. So it's not as if it's an overnight phenomenon. It's been around. It's only that it has not taken off. The question to you, Pragyan, and then before I wrap it up, is it now on the cusp? Post-COVID world, fandom has become more democratic. Technology and the use of technology has become all the more pervasive. That, I think, is a benefit of COVID. Is Venki cashing in? Timing in sport is of essence. Is he cashing in at the right time?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I think this year's IPL has showed us that, I mean, end of the day, it's about viewership. It's a television sport. It's how you consume, right? And because of digital breakthroughs, you have now the digital platform, the usual television, orthodox television platform, and most important, the best part about US is the school and college sports is so robust. If they adapt the sport, it's not going to take long for them to to pick it up, because your NCAAs and your school sports is so robust. I mean, all you have to do is just make them taste the sport. I'm sure there'll be some people who take up the sport, and soon, before you realize, it becomes a proper NCAA sport, and it's a college intercollegiate sport then. And once that happens, I mean, you won the war. You won the war. That's how it is. But it's going to be challenging, because both of you mentioned about baseball. And because baseball being a bat and ball sport, much like cricket, and most importantly, an American sport, I think that's the biggest challenge, is getting people introduced to another bat and ball sport, which is not American. I think once you break that, or you cross that hurdle, I think rest will be a lot more easier. Talking about timing, obviously, yes. I think post-COVID, and also the mindset has changed as far as people are concerned. They're a lot more open-minded now. They're a lot more open about other things. It's changed how we think about everything, actually. So I think this couldn't have been a better time. And again, I will have to emphasize that the fact that the franchisees will own the league makes a huge difference. That makes them the stakeholder of the sport in that country. It's not about, you're not depending on USAC anymore. USAC is also a stakeholder, just like the franchisees, and together, I'm sure they'll make sure that cricket is is a sport to reckon with in the US.
Okay, Pragyan?
Yes, that's where the the main challenge is, like, how do you get cricket there? I've gone and seen the grassroots level. You need people who know the sport. Slowly we saw a couple of Indians leading US team and all. That culture has to be built. So that's the reason I was saying it is very important that uh, somehow US and Indian both, they work together, because India, when you talk about, it's the superpower when you talk about cricket. So something we have to do, once, as Deep Bhai said, that this sport gets into schools and colleges, then it's a different ball game. Once it is into you, into your system, then you don't have to put too much effort. So I think saying that I see somewhere both the boards working together, because this is a huge thing. The market that you see in US, that's huge. I've heard few of my cousins talk about Super Bowl and all that. It's holidays. You talk about like India Pakistan, those 90s, when you used to see it is like that. Boryada and Venki Garu could agree with me, because that's what I've heard. So to build something like that, I know it'll need some time, but at the same time, I think in Indian board and US board, they have to work together, because I feel that transition from cricket being an outside sport, getting into your system, and being a part of your schools and colleges will do a world of good.
Okay. Venki, now give me a sense of timing. I mean, you've made the announcement, but there's a difference between a press release and when it actually happens. So,
Yeah.
what's the deal?
Yeah.
What is the kind of timeline you're looking at? What is the ballpark you're looking at? When do we see action on the field?
Yeah. See, timeline is also, I'll just give you a quick sense for the type of activities that will be engaged in, because as Deep rightly pointed out, the difference between this model and any others that you're familiar with is that we become part owners of the league. And as a result, the role that they are expecting us to play is almost like a consulting role as well. In addition to being stakeholders, that they want us to help them build USA cricket. They want us to help them build the academies. They want us to help them build at the grassroots level that Pragyan was talking about. On the major league side, the launch of the league itself is crucial. But for the launch of the league, one of the things that needs to be in place is the infrastructure. So when you're talking about 6 franchises and 6 full-fledged world-class cricket stadiums, the conversations have already started with city councils of the various cities in which it's going to be based. Of course, there's already talk about, and it's out there about us potentially putting our franchise in LA. And, Bollywood meets Hollywood or whatever, people are already coming up with taglines, which makes sense. So there could be a LA Knight Riders, and, people always say, oh, there is a LA Lakers and they're also purple and gold. So it all, comes together. So there's a very strong sports culture there. So when you start thinking about stadiums and this, so in terms of sequence, what's going to happen is that there is going to be a substantial fundraising that will happen probably within the next 6 to 8 months, where somewhere between $75 million to $100 million is going to be raised. And, very confidently, we're all feeling that the investor group that has come together will be able to raise that. Either bring in an external investor or the existing investors themselves will contribute. And that money is going to be used to put the 6 stadiums together. And the conversations that are happening, the way the city councils work there, and this is all part of the ecosystem and the sports culture there. I've had conversations with city councils already. They're excited. They're saying, how much land do you want? And how much, long-term financing do you need, low-cost financing? And so then you actually get them on a private-public partnership, build it, and you're leasing it back from them. So ACE as an entity will lease it back. Imagine when the infrastructure is put together. I was in Dallas just before I went to CPL, and there's a soccer field there. There's a team called Dallas FC, and they invited me to come and watch a game. This is Major League Soccer, another model of a non-American sport that has come in and established itself. As I'm walking to that stadium, I'm crossing 10 football fields. And I said, what is this? Oh, these are all practice fields for them. So that's the kind of scale and that's the kind of resources that are available. So what we think is already 3 of these stadiums are kind of in a state of readiness already. There's a Fort Lauderdale, there's one in Morristown, and there is a baseball stadium in Dallas that they have already permitted cricket to convert it into a cricket stadium. So that renovation has started. So there'll be at least 3 proper stadiums. And they're already encouraged by the fact, they said, hey, boss, you have run your whole IPL in UAE with 3 stadiums with 8 teams. We can easily run 6-team tournament format with 3 stadiums, which means that will happen. So, but realistically, the launch of the major league will happen probably in 2022. Although they were a little optimistic about 21, we said, listen, let's not force the issue with the pandemic and whatnot. So 2022 will be the launch of the T20 tournament there. potentially it'll happen in 3 stadiums. Parallelly, the other 3 will be getting ready. So probably by 23, you'll suddenly see 6 city-based proper world-class infrastructure ready, home and away type of format in place. So that's going to happen. Now, parallelly, what happens is helping them build the USA team means that there'll be some kind of recruiting that will happen worldwide. So it's players who are interested in coming, and they've set up something where you come and live there for 3 years, you qualify as a resident, and you can play for the USA team. And there are many people who have already, since this announcement has gone, I'm getting messages from various places, hey, how does one get involved with this? So I think this is the timeline. So I think one big milestone is the fundraising that will happen in the next 6 to 8 months. I think the next big timeline will be the launch of the Major League T20 tournament in 2022. And then, that itself will gain the traction, and, will keep going from there.
Lovely. Clearly exciting times for sport. Pragyan Ojha, Deep Dasgupta already starting to think, how do we get involved? Obviously, there will be opportunity. There'll be opportunity
Absolutely.
for podcasts. There'll be opportunity for everybody. More sport across the world, more economically viable sport means strengthening of the sports industry. And that is what Venki Mysore and his team at the Kolkata Knight Riders are doing by taking it or being a part of this foray in the United States. I'll finish off on this note, Venki. This is something that you've got to think about. 2010-11, when you took over, Kolkata Knight Riders 3 years barren. 2014 onwards, now it's been 7 years, it's barren. You've got to change that. You've got to change that for this city. You've got to change that for yourself. You've got to change that for everybody. So while you make your forays and you conquer the world, you've got to look at your base also, because ultimately your fans in Kolkata will say, hey, Venki Mysore, you are going to the United States, give us our IPL back. You've not done that. So on that note, I think Knight Riders think tank will also have to start working, because you've only got 4 months. And next year, if you don't win, if you come and tell us, oh, it's been a bad year, we're not going to take that. So final comments from you on that note. Many congratulations for what you are doing. Tremendous work. Pragyan, yes. I'll come to you first, then Venki will
before
one minute.
Venki
One minute. So the point is, this is a fantastic initiative. We want to celebrate it on Sports Today, because America being part of the cricket ecosystem has been a dream of the cricket world for a long, long time. If Venki and his team are able to crack that, it's a massive step forward for world cricket. Yes, Pragyan, before I give Venki the closing words.
Just 2 things. Congratulations, Venki Garu, for having this vision of getting 2 superpowers. One is cricketing superpower, and the other one is, in the world, it's superpower. To getting it together, it's a dream. I wish you all the very best. And the other thing, thank you for showing a lot of confidence in Varun Chakravarti. That boy, it's the find of KKR. That's all I can say, because the confidence that you've shown as a spinner, when I watched him playing for TNPL and the local leagues, and now going to Australia and being a part of Indian team. So it's the franchisee, and also the other 2 boys, Nagakoti and Mavi. As a cricketer, I'd like to thank you for that, because these are the things which a cricketer needs, the backing.
Venki, closing words.
Thank you for that. Much appreciated. I think these are fantastic youngsters, deserve everything they've got, and I know they're going to go from strength to strength. So, Boria, the only thing that I would say is that since we have a very global outlook, somewhere we feel in the Knight Rider platform over the last 10 years, we've won 6 championships. Because we won 2 in IPL, we won 4 in CPL, and we've had a season which is an unbeaten season. So don't forget the fact that we've got 4 more trophies there, more than any other franchise has won in the last 10 years, if I may add. And having said that on a lighter note, I would say that in IPL, having won the championships, the first realization for me, you've all been there, you're all champions, you've played at the highest level. When you win it, the first thought that came to my mind was how difficult it is to win. A lot of things have to come together. And I'll close off on one statistic which shows how close this winning and losing or not winning is. That, over the last 10 years, I sort of did some statistics for myself. Over the last 10 years, we said, what are the win-loss ratios of all the teams? And you'll be surprised that the top team has got a 59% win-loss ratio, which is Chennai, actually. And Mumbai has got a 58% win-loss ratio, and KKR has got a 55% win-loss ratio. After that is 50%. So we are in the top 3 in the last 10 years. But when you see the margins with which you actually win, and Mumbai will, fantastic, they've stood out. In the last 10 years, what has happened? KKR has won 2 championships, Chennai has won 2 championships, Sunrisers has won 1, and Mumbai has won 5. Okay. But you sit down and talk to them, they say, boss, 2 games we won by 1 run. It could have gone anyway. Whichever way it could have gone. So these types of things all happen. But that spirit, what you're saying is taken in the right spirit, and that enthusiasm and that drive is there for that, for sure, to do it for Kolkata, to do it for our fans. And it's just unfortunate when someone rubs it in and says, boss, you missed making the playoff because of 0.06 in net run rate. And my analyst had to also whisper in my ear that translated to 12 runs whole season. Difference between making it to the playoffs or not making it was 12 runs. I said, that's not even 1 run per game. So that is how close this tournament was. But we'll not leave it to chance next time. And we'll have to be more ruthless. I think if there is one learning that comes from it, nobody is giving a free run. Nobody is giving a dime to anybody in a competitive tournament like this. And so we have to be a lot more ruthless so that we can hopefully come home with the silverware. So thank you very much for all your good wishes. And it's a very exciting time for us. And it's only because of well-wishers and support that we get from people like you. And hopefully this will keep driving us to go from strength to strength.
More power to KKR, more power to Venki Mysore, more power to this venture, because it has the potential of taking cricket to newer shores on that count. And yes, and hopefully next year when he does what he does, it'll be in India, because the pandemic should be under control. And if that happens at the Eden Gardens, Venki Mysore, more Mishti Doi to you. And real Mishti Doi. I mean, however much you try that in
Absolutely.
no taste. I mean, now
Yes.
Bengal government has made 8 heritage buildings or 8 heritage shops in Calcutta, out of which 4 are Mishti shops. I'll get you those.
Yes.
So proper, lovely Mishti Doi to celebrate 2021. Fingers crossed, more power. Deep, thank you very much. Prabhan, thank you very much. But Venki, well done to you. Fingers
Pleasure.
crossed.
Thank you.
Hopefully this will take off and become a major enterprise. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you. Take care.